The honourable member for Kenora.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour to be able to rise on an important issue such as this evening. Of course, forestry is a major employer and economic driver for people in my region of northwestern Ontario and right across northern Ontario. I think about the people in Dryden and Kenora, Ear Falls, Ignace, a number of First Nations across Treaty 3 that have partnered in groundbreaking partnerships and revenue sharing agreements in order to find prosperity in the forestry industry. And it's an industry that provides powerful paychecks to many people across northern Ontario. It's also an industry that is very environmentally positive and environmentally sustainable. Mr. Speaker, we've heard a few comments about that already today, that the forest industry is one that can help mitigate effects of climate change. It can help to mitigate the effects of fires if we're able to harvest forests and harvest and be able to harness that carbon dioxide that has been absorbed through the trees, Mr. Speaker. But unfortunately, it's also an industry that has been under attack by this current NDP Liberal government, Mr. Speaker. And I want to just share one related issue, and that's around caribou in northern Ontario, because the Environment Minister had last year issued an ultimatum saying that he was going to block harvesting of thousands of kilometres of Ontario forests, and it was through this guise of caribou protection. And he was saying that and doing so without any acknowledgement of what has been happening at the provincial level, or what's been happening with First Nations and their local knowledge and local leadership to ensure that there is a protection plan in place for caribou. Mr. Speaker, the minister is moving forward, or was planning to move forward with this order just to block development. And we know he seems to have this personal vendetta against development of any kind. And it's very sad to see that the government's was planning to move forward on that. And we'll see where it stands going forward. And it's important that any plans that are put in place have to account for the provincial, territorial, and local plans that are already in place, that are already working to help ensure that we can harvest forests in northern Ontario and across the country in an environmentally sustainable way, in a way that provides good jobs and good economic growth, and of course is viable from an environmental standpoint as well. But I share that because it's just one example, and I could go on, but unfortunately I'm limited for time, Mr. Speaker. It's one example of how this government has failed the forest sector. And of course another one is the softwood lumber issue that we are dealing with right now. And this dispute has had real ramifications for people in my riding. It's led to people losing their jobs. It led to the idling of the Kenora Forest Products Mill and the eventual bankruptcy of Prendeville Industries as a result of that. Now, we're happy that Green First is now involved in that operation, but these tariffs and this trade dispute continues to hang over the heads of the workers across northern Ontario. And unfortunately, it's only going to get worse, Mr. Speaker, because the U.S. plans to increase these tariffs from the current 8% to over 13% on our softwood lumber industry. That will bring even more economic devastation to people across northern Ontario. And this has already cost billions of dollars as well to our industry. That's Canadian companies, it's First Nations that have stakes in this industry that are now without those funds as a result of this government's inaction. And it's been mentioned already, Mr. Speaker, that under the previous Conservative government there was an agreement reached within 6 months. Well, this government has had over 8 years, and they have still yet to been able to come to an agreement. The best they can say is that they're working on it, they're raising the issue, they're talking about the issue. Mr. Speaker, we don't know if that's even true or not, but we can say that one thing is true. It's either they are completely ignoring the softwood lumber issue, or they are raising this issue with U.S. counterparts and getting nowhere through 2 different administrations. It doesn't seem to matter who's in the White House. that this current government hasn't been able to get a deal done, completely incompetent and completely unable to fight for Canadian workers and Canadian industry. Mr. Speaker, Canada's Conservatives are going to continue to stand with Canada's forest sector and the hardworking people that make it thrive. Thank you.
Questions et commentaires? In comments, the honourable member for Châteauguay-Lacolle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the honourable member for his speech and just say how grateful I was to hear the term climate change mentioned by a Conservative member. There are even a couple of other words in there, Indigenous knowledge and something having to do with, wildfires, acknowledging that wildfires are an issue in this country and that this is something that needs to be addressed. So the question that I have for the honourable member is that this government has made significant investments into supporting the forest industry, especially as global demand for sustainable products, forest product grows, and the fact that, as the honourable member mentioned, that the forestry sector continues to innovate, grow, and support good jobs for Canadians. So I'd like to know why he voted against our investments in budget 2023 of over $368.4 million over 3 years to renew and update the forest sector support.
Honourable member for Kenora.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the 5 years that I've been honoured to represent the people of the Kenora riding in this Parliament, it's been a pleasure each and every time I've had an opportunity to vote against one of these NDP Liberal budgets, because I am voting non-confidence in this government, a government that is tired out of ideas, that is corrupt, that has no plan to support our forest industry or get back to a balanced budget to make life more affordable for Canadians. All of their plans have been failing, and that's why I'm proud to stand with my Conservative colleagues and continue to vote non-confidence in this government.
Questions et commentaires? L'honorable député.
Honourable member from Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, lumber, it wasn't in the minister's letter, wasn't spoken of in the recent departmental meeting. And this is 1 month after the announcement of new countervailing. And now we have this take note debate, but it's 2 months later after we started talking about this. Can we talk about how disinterested this government is in the topic?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's a very good point that is raised. This is something that is urgent for people in Northern Ontario, people in Quebec, and right across the country, but the government has really been dragging its heels on this. I think the member points out a very obvious example. I think the fact that we're even here debating it all this time later, after 8 years, is perhaps the greatest example of all that this government has been largely ignoring this issue and absent from this issue. And as I said, even if we take their word for it that they've been working on it, then, Mr. Speaker, they're clearly incapable of delivering on this issue because they've had 8 years to get it done. It's definitely time for change, and Conservatives are going to bring it home.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, as you've heard me earlier today, I want to talk about solutions. Now, my colleague, the MP for Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing, she just sent me a letter from the Mayor of Kapuskasing, and he wanted to talk about solutions to Canada's housing crisis, and he cites that they can be found in the forest, Mr. Speaker. He cites that Canada can actively promote Canadian wood and mass timber solutions within a federal affordable housing strategy, establish a harmonized regulatory framework for permitting processes to expedite approval safely and responsibly, and also adopt a performance-based approach and increasing tall wood building height allowances in the National Building Code, promote nationally certified prefabricated building technologies for wood-based for wood-based structures that meet municipal standards, and offer incentives for developers using a high proportion of Canadian wood products in new construction. And lastly, to support the development of a future-ready skilled workforce through standardized green education and training programs, something that my colleague from Thunder Bay, Timmins, James Bay has been working very hard on, Mr. Speaker. Does my colleague agree with those great recommendations from the Mayor of Kapuskasing?
With 20 seconds to go, the honourable member for Kenora.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really love the community of Kapuskasing. Last summer, I had the opportunity to travel there with the leader of Canada's Conservatives, and we met with forestry workers, many of whom feel left behind by this NDP Liberal government. They were very upset with the fact that their NDP representative continues to support the Liberal government, continues to support a government that is dragging its feet on the softwood lumber deal and not delivering for the people of Northern Ontario. And that's what Conservatives are going to do, deliver for Northern Ontario.